So there are people out there who tell women to choose a man who loves you more than you love him. And to a lot of people, maybe some of you, that may sound like sound advice. And the reality is, a lot of women are navigating through dating and relationships, focusing on making sure he loves them more than she loves him. Let me start with a story. I know of a woman, through coaching her, where she was having struggles with dating. And one of her previous relationships was a man who she was really into, all right, and felt she was in love with. And she was really giving herself to this man and trying so hard to make it work, but he was just on some foolishness, all right? He was lying about a lot of different things. He wasn't completely treating her the way that she wanted to or needed or deserved to be treated, all right? He had his good moments, as many men do, many people do. But in the totality of the relationship, he was not the man she needed him to be. And of course, by the time this finally came to an end, because he took it to an extent of cheating and just doing things that she could not forgive. And to be honest with you, it was multiple times that he cheated. She finally let go, but of course she was hurt by that, all right? Devastated. And in that, this is where she received the advice actually from an aunt of hers that, you need to just look for a man who loves you more than you love him. And so she set out to do that. And she did it, okay? She eventually, I want to say maybe after a year, it wasn't completely right away, but after like a year, she took some time to herself for a little bit, but then she meets a guy, and she knew she wasn't really into the guy. But there was some nice qualities about him. He was good looking. She liked him, but she wasn't really into him like that. But he was infatuated with her. He was head over heels. He wanted this woman, and he was doing everything he could to be with her. And so for her, focusing on finding that man who loves you more, found, quote unquote, I have to put a quote unquote on there, comfort, and I'm going to now use the word false security. It felt like security to her at that time, but I'm going to explain why it was false security. She found this false security in this relationship and thought, okay, we could be good. So she gets with him, they get an official relationship. And again, for the beginning of it, he was busting his behind, doing all that he could. But eventually, that started to fade away. And at one point, he started to feel like she wasn't giving to him what he needed. Anyways, fast forward, in this woman's mind, I am of, even though she didn't verbalize it to him, when we spoke about it, it came out where she really felt like, he's lucky I'm with him. This is really not the type of guy I would typically choose, but, I'm giving him an opportunity, and I feel like he's not appreciating it anymore. He was trying so hard in the beginning, but now it's not there. But one of the reasons she also got with him is the idea that because she thought he should feel lucky that she's even with him, that this man ain't gonna cheat on her. He's not gonna get anything as good as her anywhere else. Well, lo and behold, he cheated. And I don't mean to smile, because it's not a funny or good situation. It's just sometimes I smile because it's just, I don't know what else to do in some moments. But he cheated, things went left, and let's add a little bit more to the story. Now, let me tell you more to the story. Because he cheated, and it was almost like, how could he cheat on me? And how could he cheat on me with her? It became a battle where it's almost like the tables got turned. Now she's fighting for him, and in essence now is putting him essentially on a pedestal because simply her pride is hurt, and she's battling with this other woman. Lo and behold, as time goes on, it all falls apart. It ends. It doesn't work out. But I had to explain that because now we can dissect all the things that typically go wrong with trying to be with a man who loves you more than you love him. And the first thing is, if you actually try to do that, then you are more than likely going to date down. Think about it. For you to get with a man who loves you more than you love him, so that means you have to be able to even in some way quantify in your head that he has stronger feelings for you, which essentially means you don't really have very strong, deep feelings for him. Because if you did, you wouldn't be able to say who loves who more. So when you can do that, or to even be able to achieve that, you either consciously or subconsciously will have to choose a man who is, I hate using this word, but just work with me, beneath you. All right. It's not to mean this isn't a great guy. He may be perfect for someone else, but he's not really either of your caliber or simply does not pull out of you real love and vulnerability. And so there are a lot of women, not just dating men like this, even married to men like this. And some may convince themselves that they can handle this. Well, no one's perfect. He's still a nice guy. I can make it work. I can grow to love him. Now I'm laughing at that one because that's another one I hate. I hate that this idea of growing to love them. If you even have to tell yourself, well, I will grow to love him, again, that says you are not in love with him. You're not actually there. You're hoping for things to magically work out later. And even if you want to believe that you could grow to love someone, then wait till it's actually grown before you get into an official relationship with them. All right? To do it, hoping that it happens within the process of being with them is a huge mistake. And not to deviate too far from the main topic, but one of the reasons it's a huge mistake is what happens to many women in the attempt to grow to love him is that you become more attached to him. It could be kids. It could be simply you spent all these years pouring into this relationship. Even if you weren't pouring your all, you were still giving pieces of you to him. All right. It may be now he's good with the family. Maybe you had kids. He's good with your kids. There's so many different factors that create an attachment. So now, if you were hoping that you would grow to love him and you're in year 2 or 3 and you've come to the realization, it just ain't happening. I just don't feel for him like that. But now it's, how am I going to walk away? How do I break this to the kids? How do I do this to the kids? How do I tell my family? How do I even validate leaving this man? Because in these scenarios, this is typically not the bad man. He may not be the right man for you, but he's not a bad man. He's not doing anything blatantly disrespectful, abusive, anything that you can use and say, hey, this is the reason why I have to leave. So now you have to find a way, and that's how a lot of women feel. You have to search for a way to validate leaving him, and everyone on the outside is going to say to you, you're crazy. What are you doing? He's such a nice guy. He doesn't do anything wrong. I thought you guys were in love, because throughout these 2 years, you're probably not going around telling people, I'm going to grow to love him. You're probably saying, I love him. So they're under the impression that everything's great. All that to say, a lot of women end up finding themselves, I hate using the word stuck, so I'm going to use the word struggling to walk away. All right? Because stuck would insinuate that there's no way out. And I believe there's a way out, but it's a struggle to walk away. And so that's why you don't want to go with the grow to love him. But getting back to the dating down, that's also a piece of the dating down, is that as you're attempting this whole love, get with the man who loves you more than you love him, you're hoping for things to really possibly materialize later, or for you to be able to sustain this. And in my years of doing this, and you got to understand, I get to see relationships 1 year in, months in, 5 years in, 10 years in, and at the end when it's all done. And I have yet to see the woman who can be happy and have a fulfilling relationship over the long run in a situation like this. It doesn't happen because, again, this guy isn't what you truly want. It's who you're trying to tolerate and accept to fit into this box of him loving you more than you love him for the sake of false security. But there's more. So let's think about the story I gave you. In a lot of these situations, the woman thinks this is the key to not getting cheated on, right? Because if he loves me more than I love him, and he's so into me and infatuated with all these things, well, he's not going to do that. On top of the fact that if you're viewing him as a man who's not highly desirable, because that's the thing, it's not just dating down for you. The reality is that in this type of situation, he's not saying he's not desirable at all, but he ain't top of the totem pole. All right? He's not up there. You're not really worried about a bunch of other women getting him, which creates that false sense of security. However, what happened in that story I gave you? That tends to happen a lot. He still cheated. Now, some of you may say, oh, because he's a man. No, it's not because he's a man. It's not automatic men are going to cheat. There are underlying issues that contribute to why things go this way. Yes, there are some situations out there where cheating happens because the person is just, that's how they live, or they're greedy, or there's just all kinds of other things. But let's ignore that for a second. Let's focus on this situation. When you get with a man who, quote unquote, loves you more than you love him, there's one of four things that's likely to happen. Either he will cheat, become toxic, become extremely unfulfilling, or flat out leave you. All right? And here is why. Because all reasons stem from the same thing. If you are getting with a man like this, again, you're dating down, you're not really into him. Therefore, your desire to pour into him the way that he will need is not going to be there. And let's backtrack a little bit, because in the beginning, what happens is in his over pursuit of trying to be with you, prove himself to you, whatever, it creates this lopsided situation where it's really him giving and pouring into you and not really requiring much of you in return. Because his focus is, I have to get her at all costs. I'm so happy to have her. I can't believe I got a woman like this. All that, right? But I always say, if it starts off one-sided, it's going to somehow switch to the other side at some point in the relationship. Because at some point after he gets you, the smoke clears. And now his needs start to actually kick in. Now he figures, okay, well, now that we're together, all the things that I dreamed, because during the time he was just doing for you and putting it all about his efforts, he still was dreaming and fantasizing about the things he would one day get from you. But he was willing to put it on the back burner because, again, he viewed you on such a high of a pedestal. But once that's gone because he has you, all right, and not that he's no longer viewing you on a high pedestal, but now he's like, okay, where's my return on the investment? When do I now get my needs fulfilled? Okay? And now that he starts to require these things, one, you were never even, probably in some situations, you weren't even prepared to do anything for this man, all right? You were just looking for the safety of, all right, I got a man who does for me and I'm good. But also what he's requiring of you specifically may not sit well with you. It may not be things that you like. For example, let's just say he wants you to cook for him all the time. And you're like, I ain't doing all this cooking. I didn't sign up for this. This is not what you put in the job description, all right? And now there's a conflict. And so now, because his needs are not being met, he starts to feel devalued. He starts to feel cheated. He starts to feel like, dang, what did I sign up for? So like I said, he will start to maybe, one, act toxic. Toxic because he's acting out. Toxic because he's lashing out of frustration and resentment, all right? Maybe he starts to sense that you're not really into him like that. That also causes him to do things. For example, what's coming to mind right now, doing things on purpose to try to make you jealous, all right? Try to get a rise out of you. Because again, he's not properly handling the issue. And a lot of people resort to games and tactics to try to get a reaction out of their partner, and yes, men too. So he can start to act toxic. He can, again, become very unfulfilling because now that willingness to do for you the way that he was doing in the beginning is gone because he's not getting what he needs in return. So now he's not going to put as much of an effort, or simply because now that he has you, he becomes comfortable. All right. And therefore he doesn't think I have to keep putting in this work. So now he's not fulfilling you the way that you once were being fulfilled initially. And I would argue it wasn't really fulfillment in the beginning. It was just feeding a fear of yours, or feeding ego. It was making you feel like, okay, it's safe here, but it really wasn't. And you couldn't see it at that time. So he's unfulfilling. He's being toxic. Yes, cheating may happen. I'm not making excuses for it. I'm not trying to validate it, but I'm explaining to you that we have to understand when there is neglect in a relationship, it can crack open the door to temptation. All right. And though you may have thought, well, he would never do this because, again, maybe he just didn't seem like that type of guy. He seemed harmless. And this is not to take any responsibility away from him. But what I want to say is there are always women lurking. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just real. And what's interesting is that what you may not realize is he may not have been the most desirable man before, but now that he got with you, you actually made him more desirable. Because there will be other women looking like, well, if he got her, he must have something going on. Either he's paying for something, either he's laying it down. There is something that made this woman, because they don't know the depth of why you chose this man. They will assume he must be special in some area or multiple areas. So there will be interest now being generated from other women. And now, if he is not being fulfilled and there's that void, and this is a man, let's just go with the idea that this is a man who is not used to getting attention from women. He may have a harder time handling it. And again, not making excuses, not saying it's okay. I'm explaining to you what does happen. So we talked about toxic. We talked about unfulfilling. We talked about cheating, or he will flat out eventually leave because there's only so much a man can take. And if this situation has gone downhill, now I have to say, I do think, believe it or not, there are a lot of women who will deal with a toxic relationship for a long time. I would make the argument that there are a lot of them who would be quicker to just end up cheating before leaving. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Men, like, I wish I had the stat in front of me, but even in divorce, even in some of the horrible marriages, the majority initiators of divorce are women. So a lot of times, even when it's bad, the man does not flat out leave. All right. And again, not saying that's good or healthy. I'm just explaining to you what's going on. But that is one of the potential outcomes when you set yourself up for this kind of situation. And again, all of these things point to it's not worth it. You are headed down a path of destruction when you try to choose a man with this mentality. Now, I have to say real quick, you may say, well, I know women who have done this and they're looking like everything's great. One, there are always exceptions to the rule, even though I'm extremely skeptical that there are real exceptions. I think there are exceptions, or there are people who present it as this is working. There are people who act like it's all good, but in reality, behind closed doors, it's everything I'm mentioning to you. But they don't want to be embarrassed by exposing that information, especially if they feel like this is a man who they, dated down or whatever, and now he's doing all this stuff to them. They're not going to be proud to be mentioning that to family or friends, and they don't want to be judged either. So a lot of you don't get to see the full story of what's going on. But even if by some chance there's a successful story out there, that's one of them. I have to say, it's like one in a million. It's really extremely low odds. This is typically not going to work in your favor. So real quick, before we continue, be sure to get your copy of The Man God Has for You. Best-selling book, helping so many women, thousands of reviews. Women are loving it, calling it a blessing to read. Be sure to click the link in the description or in the comment section, or go to themangodhasforyou.com. So I can give you stories all day. I can break this stuff down. But what's important in understanding this dynamic is, where is this really coming from? So notice in the story, and that's why I started off with it, what did I mention that led into this? She was with a man that she was really into. Whether it was real love or not, she viewed it as, I gave myself to this man and I got burned. And then, out of a mentality of protection, out of a mentality of fear, and also negativity poured into her, because remember, it was the aunt who then advised her, choose a man who loves you more. So this advice, this approach comes from a negative place. It is not coming from a healthy place of what is truly going to be successful and healthy, but simply what people, mainly women, think will protect them from being hurt. And what I'm trying to lay out for you and show you is that this does not stop the hurt. If anything, you are guaranteed to be headed for more nonsense. It's coming. Better believe it. What you have to understand is, hurt is inevitable. All right? I don't know if there's a human being that has walked this earth that at some point in their life did not get hurt. This is how life is. The key is that we have to learn how to process it, handle it, heal from it, and not internalize it, hold on to it, and allow it to now project negativity and fear into our lives. Because if you are walking in fear and not faith, then trust and believe good is not going to come from that. Now, I know some of you might say, but it's too scary to put my heart out again for a man who maybe, I love more. Now, first, let's address the whole you love him more. When women say to me they were dealing with a man they loved more, 99 times out of 100, if not 100 out of 100, what you're saying to me is you were dealing with a man who did not truly love you. Let me explain what I'm saying here. If this man was in love with you, and in fairness, let me backtrack and say this, because I did say 99%, maybe it's not 99%. and let me also mention, because sometimes there are situations where you are actually with a man that genuinely loves you, is in love with you, as and the whole thing about who loves who more, when two people are genuinely in love with each other, you cannot quantify who loves who more. And when there's actual real connection, you cannot quantify who loves who more. However, because you can only know for sure the love you feel, it will feel like you love them more at times. Because you have to decipher what's going on with them moment to moment. And if this moment they're not doing certain things, you might say, well, do they really love me like I love them? Because you can only know yourself. But when you can say that they love you more, then as I said earlier, that automatically means, all right, you're just not into them like that. You're not in love with them. That's clear cut. But anyways, you may at moments feel like you love them more, but ultimately there's no way to really quantify, because both parties feel deeply into each other. And yes, in some of these scenarios, a man who loves you can still make mistakes. He may still do things that hurt you, not blatantly, but because we're human and we're gonna have our moments where we fall short. And this is why one of the things we have to understand in relationships is giving grace and understanding the difference between the man who's not perfect and the man who's not worth it. All right? And when he is not perfect, he is a man who is constantly trying. He's willing to talk to you. He's willing to make adjustments. He's trying to get on the same page as you. The man who's not worth it dismisses your feelings, does not care, is constantly blatantly doing the wrong thing. He's not showing that kind of effort. So when we go back to the example of when women say to me, they feel like they loved him more. Even though I mentioned that, yes, that can happen even in situations where y'all love each other, I will say that in most situations, it was a relationship where that man was not truly in love with her. And from the beginning, she saw red flags. From the beginning, there was warning signs. But whether you want to say it was love or heightened desire, her heightened desire to have him, for whatever the reasons are, maybe because she just wanted a relationship so bad. Maybe she feels like, okay, I'm getting to that age and I need marriage and some babies. Or maybe he makes a lot of money. Maybe my family likes him. There's so many reasons that can heighten the desire of a woman for a man. And it feels like love, but it really isn't. It's attachment, all right? And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because what I don't want to see women do is use situations where love wasn't really the driving factor there. And when things fall apart, say, well, I will not give my heart again. I cannot allow myself to even feel like I love this man more, or I'm at this supreme level of love and vulnerability. No, you've got to understand. You got to look deeper into the situation and realize that may not have been what you thought it was. And even for the sake of discussion, it actually was. You got to heal from that. You got to release those things. You have to let go. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, because if your goal is to truly have success and be happy in a relationship, you've got to be willing to put your heart out there. And listen, there are women who marry men who they may love, but they still haven't put their heart completely out there. They're still operating with guardedness. They're still operating out of fear, and they don't realize they're undermining the potential of their marriage. They're undermining the potential of their relationship because they're operating in fear. And what happens to so many women, not all, but so many, is that when the woman has not healed and she's afraid to put herself out there, she will find all the reasons to run from the right man and all the reasons to run to the wrong one. The wrong one will feel like it's emotionally safe, but it's a setup for disaster. And it only feels safe because it doesn't make you feel that vulnerable. But again, you've got to embrace vulnerability at the fullest extent, because that's where the magic happens. That's when it's really going to go to that next level. So I really, really want to encourage you, do not do this. It's not worth it. It's gonna blow up in your face. If you see other people doing it, listen, people pay a price for these decisions. And it can get really messy when it turns into a marriage and it turns into extra kids and all this stuff. And I don't want that for you. And if you're already in that situation, I want to encourage you to take a step back. And when I say take a step back, I'm not saying immediately leave the relationship, unless that's what you in your spirit you're convicted to do. That's between you and God. But at least take a step back to evaluate what needs to be done. Maybe having an honest discussion about how you're feeling. Maybe it's possible in some situations to reach a mutual understanding, because hell, if you haven't been happy for a long time, it's very possible he hasn't been happy for a long time. And it may be a time to where it's like, okay, maybe we need to go our separate ways, because this was never built on a foundation of love. It was built on the foundation of fear. And I'm trying to help direct you into loving, fulfilling relationships. Always know the difference between what you're getting and what you deserve. The reality is that there's going to be situations in life with what people are offering you isn't truly what's best for you. And you've got to understand the need to not settle. But let's be real. In today's world, especially for women in dating, the temptation to settle is strong for some. Or there are a lot of individuals encouraging settling, saying, well, maybe your options would be more realistic, or you would find more success if you were just willing to lower what your standards are. Be more willing to take less than what you actually desire. Now listen, I'm never going to tell anyone to settle, but I don't want to just say it just to say it. I want you to understand why you should not do it and why this is a recipe for disaster every single time. So, number one is your tolerance is temporary. What do I mean here? I have seen tons of women settle in dating and relationships. And I've seen those women who, yes, when they settled, when they were willing to quote unquote lower their standards, they were able to find the man. Now, if your goal is to simply find the man, then this recipe does work. But if you're trying to find peace, happiness, and the right man, this is not going to work. Because again, what these women do is they convince themselves that they can deal with this thing. And when I say this thing, they can deal with the shortcomings. They can deal with what's lacking. They can deal with changing their desire, or what they think is changing their desire for certain things. But they can't sustain that because it's not real, all right? It's them just trying to accommodate the moment. It's them trying to make it work right now so they can achieve their goal of a relationship. And sometimes it's not just a relationship, it's, well, I want to be married so badly, so I'm going to make some adjustments to what I'm willing to accept into my life. I want a kid badly, so I'm going to make some adjustments with what I accept in my life. More specifically, the type of man I will accept in my life. And I know that as the woman ages, as a woman feels like her options are dwindling, or maybe feels like she's in a city that doesn't have great options, again, the temptation creeps in. But like I said, your tolerance is temporary. And so even if you get that man, even if you get that baby, even if you get that marriage, your ability to keep this going long term is damn near non-existent. And even if you're able to keep it going, how miserable are you going to be in the process? All right? Because we have to understand that longevity in relationships does not equal success. There's a lot of times where women say to me, well, look at this woman. She's been married for 20 years, but she's been miserable for 19 of them. Oh, well, this one's in her relationship. They seem good. Yeah, seem. She posts a lot of nice pictures on Instagram. She's screaming on social media and posting her status that she's so in love. But what you don't know is she's crying behind closed doors. She's frustrated and constantly fighting with this man that she accepted into her life and knew he was not best for her. So without being able to, in the long run, keep this going, why are we going to bother at all? You're only going to create more problems by now attaching yourself to a man who does not belong in your life. This can turn into a nightmare baby daddy, all right? A nightmare, again, marriage where now we talk a lot about, when I say we, society talks a lot about the financial ramifications that men have in marriage. But here's a reality check. Financial ramifications fall on who's ever making more money, okay? And in today's world, there are plenty of women who make more money than the man, all right? And now the burden or the consequences, and I don't say that to deter you from marriage in a general sense, just putting in perspective that there is a price that has to be paid for some women as well when they marry the wrong man, all right? And again, I believe in marriage, but I want you to marry the right person and for the right reasons. But getting back to the main point, whether it's the horrible baby's father, whether it's marriage with its own ramifications, or just the everyday quality of life that you have now sacrificed by being with someone you're not truly happy with. Sometimes, a lot of times, that is worse than even being single. You know, some people think it's better to have a piece of a man than no man. No, I say if you can't have the whole man, don't have none of him. Because to be in a relationship and not get what you need, it's almost like torture, because you're not able to now freely try to seek it elsewhere. Not freely. Some women are stepping out doing their thing. That's a whole other discussion. But without you're not able to get what you need without further consequence. So you see, all you're doing is going further down the rabbit hole. Okay, yeah, you settle for this guy. There's a huge void in this relationship. Some women will go out there and cheat, but now you've introduced another man to this dynamic. You've introduced another possible drama-filled situation, all right? More headache, more stress. You get the point. Ultimately, it's not worth it. It's not going to work for you. So you've got to understand settling is not in your best interest. But here's a second thing to consider as to why you should never settle in dating and relationships. You will not be able to be the woman that he needs. And let me be even more specific with my wording. You will not be able to pour into him consistently and sustainably what he needs, all right? So let me paint a picture, give an example. You have a scenario where a woman meets a guy, or she's having struggles with dating and relationships, right? And let's just say she was hoping for a muscular 6-foot man, all right, who's doing well in life, and other things that she wanted on the list. But she settles. And I'm going to put settling into better perspective at the end of this video. But let's just say she doesn't just settle in the sense of she doesn't get 6 foot and muscular. She settles for a man who she is not truly attracted to, all right? And I'm really thinking of a specific scenario in my head where she got with a man who was extremely out of shape. He wasn't that tall, but I don't think that the height wasn't as bad of the issue as the very out of shape and just lacking attraction, all right? I don't want to say the man wasn't cute. I just want to say I don't think she found him cute, okay? Anyways, she saw him as an opportunity to get married, all right, and reach her goals in life. Her goals, and I say it like that because, yes, there are a lot of women who have set marriage and kids and certain things like that as goals, as even expectations, to where when they start to get nervous that they're quote unquote running out of time, they start accepting people that they shouldn't accept. Anyways, she gets married to this man. But here's what's not being considered. And here's what happened with her. Yes, she was able to be in a relationship with him. And she was able to stay with him for a long time. But during that time, she didn't really want to be affectionate with him. Sex was very scarce, all right? And if we go further, the level of respect, the level of admiration that a man needs from his woman, all right, non-existent. And so even though initially he was happy to have this beautiful, amazing woman in his eyes, you know, he probably thought, man, I can't get a woman like this, or I didn't think I could get a woman like this. He was miserable. And of course, she was left with a huge void, because it's one thing to not be able to give him what he needs, but let's face it, if the intimacy is lacking, if the admiration and respect is lacking, then what speaks to a woman's heart and what she desires, that closeness, that connection, she's not getting it either. So now neither of them are happy. And all they're trying to do is deal with it and tolerate each other. There are so many relationships and marriages where two people are just tolerating each other, just taking it one day at a time, trying to get to the next day, or burying themselves in distractions, kids, work, family, friends, you name it, rather than facing the reality that they're not truly into their partner and they don't get what they need from their partner in this relationship. So when you settle as a woman, your motivation, the fuel that you need to continuously pour into this man in the way that he needs is completely undermined. So whether it's attraction, whether it's other aspects like respect, whatever may contribute to a lack of respect and admiration and all these different things, this is going to make it difficult. Now listen, let's be clear. You can get with the right person and things can happen in life that can cause a hit in those areas. And so what I mean by that is if you got with someone and they let themselves go in certain areas of their life, it can have a negative impact where now our ability to pour into each other is going to be very much hindered. But it's one thing to get with someone who in the beginning there's a foundation of we have what we need, and then we hit a rough patch. We can learn to work through that. It's another thing to knowingly get into the relationship with someone where these things are not there already. They're not going to magically appear. They're not going to just, we'll figure it out later. Some people, there's always exceptions to every rule. Some people may have managed to escape the pitfalls of that approach and actually succeed, but those are very, very rare cases. The majority suffer, plain and simple. And so if you cannot be the woman he needs, if you cannot pour into him continuously the way that he will need, you will never experience a loving, fulfilling, successful relationship with this man. So it just adds to another reason why you should never settle. So now, another issue I've seen happen when it comes to women who end up going down that path of settling, all right? And again, at the end, I'm going to put into perspective what settling really is because it's important. Matter of fact, let me explain it now before I continue. Settling is not about not getting what you wanted, as far as I'm concerned. It's about not getting what's best for you, okay? So using the example earlier about the woman who wanted a man who's, let's just say there's a woman, she wants a man who's 6'2", makes 6 figures, no kids, good looking, college educated, right? And then you meet a man who is 5'8", makes $70K, has a kid, only has a high school diploma, never went to college. Now, on paper, if a woman gets with guy B, right, they would say she's settled. But to me, if guy B makes you truly happy, if with guy B you experience a real connection, if with guy B he is able to pour into your needs, then you have not settled. You won. You won. And so I think it's important to understand that, listen, there's a lot of things we may want, but is it what we need? Is it what's truly best for us? Is it what's going to make us happy in the long run? And it's important to understand the difference because I've seen women get what they want and still end up unhappy, still end up miserable, because what we want is based off of, again, maybe where we are in life at that moment, how maybe the emotional state we are at that time. There could be a lot of different factors. To me, want can be very temporary. Need it's gonna always be there. It speaks to the core of who we are. And so it's important that we don't confuse the two. So as I continue to go along with this video, keep that in mind, that it's about settling is not about not getting what you want. It's really about not getting what you need and what's best for you. Because if that woman did get a guy who was 6'2", made 6 figures and all that other stuff I mentioned, but he does not truly make you happy at the end of the day, then you settled. You could have got everything you wanted, but if you are still unhappy, still missing something in your life with this relationship, then you settled. Keep that in mind. So now, to move this along, what I have seen happen with a lot of women is this need to make the safe choice. So let me put that in perspective real quick. General story, so to speak. What happens to a lot of women is that they may have a relationship, let's call it their first love, okay? And in this first love, The woman is extremely vulnerable, wide open, I'm going to use the word naive, but not naive to make it negative, but naive just to put in perspective that she's not aware beyond her emotions. She's so caught up and consumed in the moment, she's not able to properly evaluate things. And that typically happens to a lot of women with their first love. Because typically the first love is when you're young. Hell, even if it's not when you're young, it can happen because you have not experienced this yet and you don't know how to fully navigate it. Anyways, getting to the point, get with that guy, and many times, in many cases, that first love is either just not the guy for you, or he's not mature enough. He's not truly ready to be the man you need him to be just yet. And because of that, he is going to mishandle the relationship. He's going to make some mistakes. He's going to hurt you. All right? And because he's this guy that you are so open and vulnerable with, his hurt is going to hurt a lot. It's going to sting. So let's just say the two break up, and now women will process within themselves that, okay, I don't want to have to go through this again. I don't want to put myself in this scenario again. So now, consciously or subconsciously, I'm going to make a safe choice. I'm going to choose the man that I don't think I have to worry about in the ways I had to worry about my first love. Whether that be, this guy may be good enough to be with, but he doesn't make me vulnerable like that. Or it could be my first love was really good looking and got way too much attention from women. So I'm going to choose a guy who's not that great looking. I'm laughing, but this is a real thing. Not that great looking because I don't have to worry about him as much. Or I may pick a guy who's just not as desirable because I feel like with him, I will have more emotional control, more emotional security, as well as I technically will have the upper hand. I will be the more valuable one in this situation. It creates what's the word I'm looking for? It creates a false perception of safety. All right. And it is a true false perception. And I'm going to explain it now. Because what this leads to is the fact that the safe choice is usually the wrong choice. So one, why is it the wrong choice? Because again, the safe choice is another word for the man I settled for. Let's just be real. You're not calling the guy who you think is so magnificent and amazing and you're so in love with the safe choice. He's not going to feel safe. If anything, that guy, especially if you've already been hurt before, that guy seems like the scariest choice possible. All right? That guy feels dangerous as hell. And if you have not healed, you're more than likely to run from that guy, which is a lot of women have ran from the right guy and ran to the wrong one. All right? So when we say safe choice, we're really in most cases, if not pretty much all, saying the guy you settled for. And so, again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. If you're settling for him, you're not going to be able to be the woman he needs, which opens the door, and I have to highlight this specifically, which opens the door to him cheating on you. The reason why I'm mentioning this specifically is because all the women I have sat down with and coached, when we discovered that they accepted the safe choice into their life, they have all acknowledged that a part of them believed that this man would not cheat on them. Because again, the perception is, I'm the prize here. I'm of the greater quality. He should be happy to have me, happy that I'm even allowing myself to accept him into my life. He has to appreciate my presence. He can't afford to, not only can he not afford to cheat on me, hell, he's not the most desirable dude. So he's not getting women left and right anyway, okay? And now all safe choices, that doesn't apply to all safe choices, the whole not getting other women, but that can apply in a lot of scenarios. So anyways, you're thinking, oh, okay, he ain't going nowhere. He's not going to cheat. But what's being overlooked is he's excited to get with you initially. So yes, he views you as, oh my gosh, I got this. Going back to my example of the guy who was unattractive, getting that woman and thought, I can never get a woman like this. But after the hype goes away, after the smoke clears, he's now faced with the reality that I have this on paper desirable woman, but she doesn't give me what I need. Now I'm not happy. Now I have a void. And I don't care who you are, man or woman, when you are in a relationship and you're not having your needs met, at the very least, the temptation of infidelity, the temptation of cheating starts to creep in. And now it may simply become a situation of, does the opportunity present itself? Some people simply have not cheated yet because they haven't had the opportunity. All right? And I'm talking about specifically the ones who are being neglected in their relationship, who are not being fulfilled, not having their needs met. They have not had the opportunity to, or a desirable option to take. But it's not because there's not a part of them that wants to. Because again, we are human. And we don't get in relationships to be neglected. Plain and simple. So when a partner does that, it's going to cause a problem. So getting back to the specific dynamic of making the safe choice, again, he's a safe choice. He's the guy you settled for. You can't pour into him continuously the way that he needs. This opens the door to him doing exactly what you thought he wouldn't do. Cheat. And the mistake that a lot of women make is then to think that this cheating is a result of him simply being a man. Wrong. It is a result of two people who should not be together, who are not pouring into each other as needed and not being fulfilled in this relationship. Fulfilled in the way that a relationship should fulfill two people. So, whether it be the cheating aspect, whether it be, again, just being unhappy and miserable in this relationship, the safe choice turns into a lot of other issues. One other aspect I'm going to add to this is a lot of times, this is what I have seen, a lot of times that quote-unquote safe choice turns into the narcissist. Now, I know that might sound strange to some of you because you're like, no. They're either a narcissist from the jump or they're not. There's a different video we're going to have to do on that, right? But let me say this. Sometimes what is being perceived as narcissism is plain and simple being selfish. And that selfishness can come about when people feel like their partner is dismissing and devaluing them. And now they make it all about them, all right? And they become narcissistic. I have seen people enter into a relationship with genuine intent and then evolve into a very narcissistic mindset, all right? But also sometimes, yes, it could be they were a narcissist from the jump, but you did not see it because you were not evaluating them from that perspective. You were evaluating them from the perspective of, this is safe here. What you thought would be safe here. They seem like I don't have to worry about them in the ways I had to worry about my previous love. So again, I can go on and on, but the point is, safe choice, usually the wrong choice. It highlights more and more why settling, because that's basically what it is going to blow up in your face. So now, I gave you a lot to consider, but here's a few more things as to why you should never settle in dating and relationships. And that's because God did not create you to settle. Listen, God did not put you on this earth to take less than what you deserve or what's best for you. God wants you to be happy. Now, I want to be very clear. The path to happiness through God may have to go through some storms, some hills, some struggles, all right? But we have to understand that what we perceive as bad or struggle, or what we perceive as bad and unfortunate may be recipes for success, all right? But just something that I want you to be mindful of. But ultimately, the end result is God wants you to be in a better place. And settling is saying, I don't trust God to give me better. I don't trust God to provide me with the blessings that speak to my heart. Biblically, it says God wants to give you the desires of your heart. Now, I don't interpret that as he wants to give you what you think you want. I interpret it as he wants to give you what you truly need. Again, what will truly speak to your heart, what will truly make you happy, what will truly give you peace while on this earth. At least a level of peace, because there's a whole lot of chaos going on around us. But anyways, the point is, to settle is to undermine the process that God wants to take us through and the blessings he wants to bring us to. And so don't cheat yourself. You know what I'm saying? And you have to look at it from, okay, is what I'm accepting what God wants me to accept? Or is there more for me? All right? Is there something else that I need to achieve? Is there something else I need to do? Is there something other process I need to walk through? All of that has to be considered. So I'm just going to wrap this specific point up by saying, listen, before you even think about settling, and I don't care if it's a man, a job, whatever, pray about it. Pray before you accept things into your life. Pray before you say this is going to be good enough. Pray before you allow yourself to get so attached to a man that by the time you pray, if you heard no, you don't know how to walk away. Pray early, pray often, and trust what God is telling you in your spirit. And with that, understand that yes, what is best for you does exist. And again, notice I'm carefully using the words, what is best for you. Because there is a quote that says, what you want exists. And though I am guilty of posting and tweeting that quote plenty of times, I think it's important for you to understand again, I don't want you to be so locked into what I want. It's what is best for me. And yes, please understand, what is best for you may be the same thing as some of the things you want or all the things you want, depending on how you've processed those things, okay? But you have to look at it from the angle of what's best rather than just what is wanted. And what is best, what truly is going to make you happy, does exist and it's out there. Settling a lot of times is the result of lost hope, lost faith, buying into or falling into the trap of thinking that these things that speak to our heart, that bring us joy, are not out there, or they're not out there for us anymore. And that's a lot of devil told. I'm just going to say it like that. Like, listen, you got to reject that and understand, again, God wants better for you. God has better for you. But you got to keep pushing forward. But let me add this last thing before we wrap this video up. Attract what is best for you. I want to say attract what you desire, but again, I want you to process it different. Attract what is best for you. So what I mean is this. Everything that I'm telling you in this video about not settling is all true. But I don't want you to end this video and think, oh, okay, I'm just going to stay where I'm at in life and just not accept less. That's only a piece of the puzzle. The other piece is I'm going to do what is necessary to receive that thing that is best for me. I'm going to put in the work. Like they say, faith without deeds is dead. I don't know why I'm struggling to say it correctly, but faith without deeds is dead. I believe that's the right way to say it. Anyways, you got to put some work behind your faith. You got to put some work behind your hope and your embracing of God having better for you. And that's why it's important for you to, in prayer, ask God, okay, what do I need to do to receive these things? What is my role? What part do I play in this? It's not about go about life however you want, expecting things to fall in your lap. Plenty of people are not getting what they deserve because they're not putting in the work that needs to be done. Plain and simple. And don't take offense to that. Don't be ashamed or don't be offended by the need to correct certain behaviors, the need to improve in certain areas, the need to grow and evolve. And we've got to understand that in attracting what is best for us, it's not simply about what we think should be acceptable. It's about what is actually required. All right? And so putting it specifically within the framework of dating and relationships. And some of y'all may not like this, but again, I say this with love, and I say this because it's what will honestly help you get to the right place. If you're not having success with men, but you're holding on to what you think men should be willing to accept, you're not going to see improvement. You're not going to see better results. There is a level of having to embrace what men, or at the very least, the type of man who is best for you, is going to need to see from you. All right? And don't think this is about, well, why is it the woman that has to change? No, the person who wants better results has to make changes. So if this video was speaking directly to men, and I will at some point make a video on this exact topic to men, because sometimes certain angles are a little different depending on who I'm speaking to. But if I was speaking to them, I would make the same exact point. It would not change. So me saying this is not because you are a woman. I'm saying this because you are a person who wants better in your life. And once you embrace that and you're willing to take the right steps forward, you're going to start to see the benefit, the progress, and receive the blessings that are truly best for you. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. So there's this great quote that says, lust can feel like love until it's time to make a sacrifice. And I wanted to lead with that quote because even though we're not going to really dive into the whole lust thing in this video,